So, starting with barriers to communication. In the previous video, we did communication, we did the elements of communication, features of communication and types of communication, formal, informal. We talked about rumors, grapevine, communication networks. Today we are starting with the topic barriers to communication. What exactly do we mean by barriers? Like noise is hindrance or obstruction in communication process. Barriers are also some kind of hindrance, or they filter a part of communication and make communication little difficult to understand. So there is a gap between the sender and receiver on many pretexts. It could be semantic, that is encoding, decoding. It could be psychological, people are angry or they are happy or they are not ready to receive, whichever way it is. Personal barrier, barrier of people when they see the same thing from different point of view, or the organizational barrier, which are basically to do with the authority responsibility relationships. So we'll start with the barriers to communication. Managers face several problems due to communication breakdown. So there are some breakdown. Now these are not obstructions, these are not hindrances, these are breakdown. These barriers may prevent a communication or filter a part of it or carry incorrect meaning, due to which misunderstandings may be created. This is known as barrier to communication. This is what is barriers to communication. Let's start. The barriers are classified as or categorized as. We can write here classification or categorized as, because this is what they give the question in the board as. Semantic barrier, personal barrier, psychological barrier, organizational barrier. We'll start with semantic barrier first. It's pertaining to, semantic is branch of linguistics, then this basically it is dealing with meaning of words and sentences, basically encoding and decoding. These are concerned with problems and obstruction in the process of encoding and decoding of message or words or any kind of impression. So when there is a difficulty in encoding, decoding, when there is a problem where people have something to say, they actually want to say something else, but they are unable, they lack that kind of vocabulary and they cannot express it properly. So these are the kind of barriers which semantic barriers highlight about. Such barriers are on account of use of wrong words. So you choose wrong words and there is a barrier. Faulty translations, translations are not clear, or the interpretation is different. So these are the basic kind of barriers which you face when you are talking about semantic barrier. The first one being badly expressed message. Sometimes intended meaning may not be conveyed by manager to his subordinates. So he wants to convey something else, but he conveys something else, the manager. These badly expressed message may be on account of inadequate vocabulary. We do not have complete vocabulary. Usage of wrong words. Sometimes you use wrong words, and omission of needed words. What was required, you don't use that kind of word. Usually it happens with English vocabulary. All of you stand in a straight circle. Now that's a very badly expressed message. You can't stand in a straight circle anyways. Badly expressed message. That's what it is, right? Symbols with different meanings. Now, symbol with different meaning means there's a word which has got different meanings. Which one you are trying to communicate is very important to know. Like, a word may have several meanings. Receiver has to perceive one such meaning for the word used by the communicator. Here we are using the word value. What is the value of this ring? I value our friendship. Now here value means something else. What is the value of learning? Here value means something else. I'll give you another example. A boy tells a girl, hello, I'll give you a ring tomorrow. Girl feels very happy. She thinks, oh, I'll get a diamond ring. Will it be a gold ring? Will it be a silver ring? The boy was telling, I will give you a ring tomorrow, means I'll give you a phone call tomorrow. Now, what are you talking about? The meaning changed. Wrong perception leads to communication problems. The perception was wrong by the girl. Technical jargon. When we talk about technical words, there are some words which are much better and clearer to the experts than as to the layman. Like if you talk in terms of management, If somebody says, what's the difference between goals and objectives? The technical people know it. What is the difference between, if you talk about types of plans, if you know the difference between strategy and a plan, you know the difference, you know it. In-depth meaning, technical jargon. People use technical words and they are not clear to the receiver because he may not be technical expert in that particular field. So that also poses a threat to the communication. It is usually found that specialists use technical jargon, which of course when you talk about the specialist, the people in that particular expert in that particular field, while explaining to persons who are not specialists in the concerned field. So while explaining to someone, you may use technical words, therefore may not understand the actual meaning of such words. So the people may not understand, the other people may not, therefore other people may not understand the real meaning of such words. That's what we talk about technical jargons in communication. Next we talk about is faulty translation. Now sometimes what happens is the workers understand Hindi but the manager knows English. So when he has to translate that English into Hindi, he may not be proficient in doing that and there could be a mistake in the same matter. So you have to be proficient and you have to be rather efficient in both the languages to make people understand things. Like I'll give you an example for faulty translation. Let's interpret ladki नीचे खड़ी है. Now, how will you translate this in English? Someone translated it as misunderstanding. Now, believe me, misunderstanding is not the right translation. Not at all. Because misunderstanding in general means that there is lack of clarification between two people. So sometimes the communications originally drafted in one language, example English, need to be translated to the language understandable to workers, that is Hindi. If translator is not proficient with both the languages, mistakes may creep in, causing different meanings to communication. There would be different meanings to the communication. Now that's what is faulty translation about. Unclarified assumption. You know, sometimes we give a situation or we find somebody in particular situation and we just assume that this person is like that. So there are some unclarified assumptions which become a barrier to communication. Like for example, a boss may tell his subordinate, okay, here we have some guests, take care of them. The subordinate understands it that to take people with care and drop them to the hotel and then everything is over. Whereas boss meant that till the time these people stay out here, you have to take care of them in context of all the facilities provided, inclusive of hotel or maybe excursion or roaming around or going around, whatever it is, right? So some communications may have certain assumptions which are subject to different interpretations. For example, a boss may instruct a subordinate, take care of our guest. Boss may mean that subordinate should take care of transport, food, accommodation of the guest until he leaves the place. The subordinate may interpret that guest should be taken to a hotel with care. So actually the guest suffers due to these unclarified assumptions. I'll give you another example. Suppose there's a child and you ask the child, why have you not done homework? Now that child is in habit of not doing homework and he has a history of not completing work. The moment you will ask him, then you will tell him, leave it. You are one person who never does any work. He may have a genuine reason behind not doing homework for all these days or maybe that very day. But we have just simple unclarified assumption. We presume our own ways. We don't pay attention to what that person wants to say and things may go in the wrong manner. Means what? Some communications may have certain assumptions which are subject to different interpretation. My interpretation, my understanding of that child is he never does homework. Leave it, let it go. So that child gets into the habit of always giving an excuse because he knows he can be always exempted by telling I have not done my homework and he'll never do the work at all. So there are some unclarified assumptions which we presume and which create a communication barrier. Next we come to is body language and gesture decoding. So sometimes when teacher comes to the class, she says, and you know what she's trying to say. And sometimes when you go to a hotel where people are welcoming you and they just do like this, and you know from the gesture, they are just trying to be they are just exchanging the pleasantries with you, that is, they are welcoming you. Every movement of body communicates some meaning. The body movement and gestures of communicator matter so much in conveying the message. Very true. If the teacher comes to a class and she's very angry and she just walks into class and she starts blah, 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 she starts teaching, you know that she's in bad mood. You don't play any prank or trick, or you don't do anything at all, because you know she has a furious mood. The communication there and then of encoding and decoding creates a problem. Why? Whatever she's trying to tell you, you have your own unclarified assumption that she's angry. Maybe she's angry with you, maybe she's angry with her husband, or maybe she's angry in totality, or whatever it is. There could be a total misunderstanding of whatever is being conveyed to you. So if there is no match between what is said and what is expressed in body movement, communications may be wrongly perceived. Yes. You know, just simply in what we have in very common in Punjab is that when somebody looks at you like this, you just ask him, "Eh, sanu kuriyan kyun vat raha hai?" Now, what is kuri vatna means? It means in English, it means, why are you giving a stare to me? Now, the person may not be staring at you. He has the habit of looking in one direction for a very long time. And people pick up actually verbal spats on basis of this kind of body language. So, semantic barriers. Now, next kind of barrier we're going to talk about is psychological barrier. Now, what are the psychological barrier? Again, psychological barrier are kind of state of mind. Both sender and receiver both are involved. Like for example, sender is trying to say something and receiver is not ready to percept it. Again, that's a psychological barrier. Whichever way it is, sender is trying to say something, but the receiver is not listening to him. So again, that is kind of a barrier, psychological barrier. Emotional or psychological factors act as a barrier to communication. The state of mind of both sender and receiver of communication reflects in the effective communication. So if I am trying to say something and you are ready to percept it, you are ready to accept this kind of communication, you will be able to understand. But if I am trying to say something and you say, I am so bored with business studies, don't want to do the barriers to communication, you will not be able to understand. So both sender and receiver should have a clear psychological, there should be no barrier, they should have clear psychological receptive mind to understand these kind of barriers. For example, a worried person cannot communicate properly. No, because somebody who is worried out of anxiety, he cannot talk about it properly, and then there would be a problem in communication and would not be able to understand things. Anxiety. An angry receiver cannot understand the real meaning of message. What are you doing? What are you doing? So if I am saying something, my voice is not clear. If I am saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What am I talking about? I even myself don't know. So may not be able to percept it. The types of psychological barrier, first is premature evaluation. Predisposition is the right word. We just think it over. This person is like this and cannot change. Sometimes, you tell your friend about some person, this person is not good, don't talk to him. Still your person talks to that person, and after some time when he gets hurt or there is something like, you always end up telling, I told you this person is not good. See, without even, he may not get hurt, he may get hurt, may have anything, any kind of relationship, but you have already perceived something about that person. Whatever, if it was your friend's fault because of which they had both that person and this friend had a problem, but you have already thought in a particular manner about that person and it doesn't change. Predisposition. You decided in advance this person is going to be like this and outcomes will always be like this. Sometimes people evaluate the meaning of message before the sender completes the message. Okay. Such premature evaluation may be due to the conceived notion or prejudice against the communicator. We just feel that the one who's communicating or who's giving the communication, and you just make up your mind that he's going to speak things like this only. This is your first premature evaluation. Lack of attention. I usually call it PPMO. Why I call it PPMO? You know what does PPMO means? It means physically present, mentally out. Physically you are in the class, but mentally you are somewhere else. You are not paying attention. Teacher is speaking, you are not paying attention. Physically present, mentally out. Now, the preoccupied mind of a receiver, because you are dreaming about what to eat during the recess, or you are dreaming about what mama has cooked in lunch. Mind is somewhere else, right? And result non-listening of the message acts as a major psychological barrier. For example, an employee explains or tries to explains about his problem to the boss. The boss is preoccupied, doesn't grasp the message. Employee will be disappointed. Very big psychological barrier. Loss of transmission. I'm telling you something. You're not taking it only. I'm trying to communicate to you. You're not listening at all. Here. So when communication passes through various levels, successive transmission of message results in loss or transmission of inaccurate information. See, when there are too many levels, I communicate something to the next level and next level communicates something else. Suppose I tell the monitor, please make sure that all children complete their work tomorrow morning. If they don't complete it, I might call the parents and inform them that your child is not regular to school. The monitor comes to class and he communicates to everyone that please complete your work. If you don't complete, ma'am, we may call your parents tomorrow. Now some of the students were absent. So they asked the people who were present, they said, ma'am told to complete the work, if not you will be out of the school. What? What was that? Loss of transmission, traveling from one place to another. So oral or verbal communication always has this problem. Sometimes when you put oral communication or when you talk about verbal communication, people add on little mirch masala, they add on little spices to make it more yummier to taste and to make it more different to listen to. That is what is loss of transmission. Poor retention. Keep on telling you something, you are not able to keep it into your mind. Why? It is another problem. Usually people cannot retain the information for a long time if they are inattentive or not interested. Despite of teaching whichever way it is, sometimes you are not able to understand the lecture because your mind is not there. You don't want to retain that kind of information. So you're not interested in that particular subject. That subject will always give you a threat or pose a threat for you. There will be a psychological barrier in which you are not interested. Why? Because you cannot retain it. Even if you write it 5 times, still you are unable to retain it. So poor retention. Next, distrust. Between whom? The communicator and the communicatee. If they do not trust each other, it acts as a barrier. So the parties do not have faith in each other, they do not believe each other, they cannot understand each other's message in its original sense. Very true. Boss says something, subordinate listens to it and he says, this boss wants me to do this work because he wants to take the credit of it. The subordinate says something, boss says this, subordinate, he tries to act very smart. They don't trust each other. How will they work together? There is always going to be a psychological barrier with both of them. So enough for today. In the next video, we will be doing the personal barriers as well as organizational barriers.